All right, this time we're looking at the rhetorical analysis free writes, so that'll take us to the next section there. The free writes, of course, you can access here. For these, you're going to need two things. You're going to need the supplemental material that's here under free writes, and you're going to need the glossary. Okay, so glossary is helpful no matter what you're doing. If you're doing the visual text analysis free writes, for example, helpful to have the glossary there. A lot of it's in the lecture, but the glossary has more than what's in the lecture. So here, if you look under visual text analysis, I know this is last week's. Look at, sorry, sorry, it's under resources for Essay 3. Film terminology, that'll be your glossary of film terms that will help you analyze the free writes with our visual text free writes. This week we're looking at rhetorical text analysis. So let's see, we've got our essay, got your draft, got good samples, lecture material, and readings. Keep going here. I'm looking for resources for essay 4, rhetorical terms. So when I say take out the glossary, when you're working on these free writes, that's the document right there. Go ahead and click on that. It's really all you should need, other than some notes and the supplemental material you'll find under free writes. So if you click here, you're going to get this document right here. I would read the opening paragraph here. Basically these are rhetorical terms, and these are things you can look for when you're trying to figure out how people are trying to persuade you or how they're trying to persuade other people. I won't spend a whole lot of time on the glossary itself other than just to help you navigate it. Okay, so you got the paragraph that tells you what these terms are. After that, you've got an alphabetical order of some of the classic rhetorical devices. Like I said, alphabetical order, starting with a fortiori, going through some real classic ones there, stuff that, ethos, pathos, logos, and other things that you'll see um, quite often. If you see anyone defining something, check and see if it's a stipulative definition, see if that's what they're doing. Okay, and then after that, in this document, you have different sections. The sections themselves are in alphabetical order, so we're going to start with balance. When we're talking about balance in writing, we're basically talking about sentence structure and parallelism, like things that, and that's how I mean it here, like things that writers can do to play around with or manipulate the sentence structure for a particular purpose. That's really what all these devices here are about. There's some interesting ones, especially when it comes to different types of lists. There are lots of those. Please don't just look at everything and just call it piling. Um, there are other, yeah. Look, if you do have a list and you want to talk about that, which isn't the most interesting thing anyway, as far as devices go. But if you wanted to look at parallelism, look at piling, look at tetracolon climax, and look at tricolon, because all those relate to different types of lists. Criticism would be the next thing there in terms of alphabetical order. Here you're looking at devices that are critical of a speaker or of a work. Devices of humor, if you are, say, analyzing, like, say, for example, if you choose to analyze a commencement address, which I highly recommend for Essay 4, those are highly entertaining. Uh, they're great to look at for Essay 4. They make the work of this essay fun because you're reading something humorous. Um, Certainly, those aren't the only other options. You can read any humorous piece. I believe Mark Twain, great humorist as well. But yeah, divisive humor. So particularly if you're looking in those areas, that's where you should look. to try to figure out what kinds of devices are being used in what you're in the piece that you're reading and analyzing for essay 4. Devices of omission are what they say, when you're leaving stuff out, different methods of that. This is another really important one, devices of organization. So look at like, they're more looking at like bigger picture, speech organization, essay organization, how they organize like the whole piece or where parts go like within a piece. But we're not really talking much about sentence structure here. This is more like uh, essay structure or speech structure or whatever the piece that you're reading, novel structure. More like bigger picture parts. And repetition is probably the most important one. They're all important, but read this one first. Repetition is the most convincing device, the most the most widely used device. I was going to say overused, but it's extremely effective. So it's probably hard to say that it's overused, but I would say that it's often used and often used effectively. Now you have repetition, and there are a lot of different types of repetition. Please don't, in your essay, call anything quote unquote repetition. As far as all the reading I've done, that's not a device. That's not a device. But if you look under here, there are lots of different types, specific types of repetition. And those are things that I would discuss. There's a big section on it in the lecture as well. There are some things in here that you'll find that aren't even in the lecture, didn't even make it in there. And you'll find some things that are on both, of course, like leitmotif, for example. Style deals with like overall, style in some ways is very like personal to the writer, like what's their style, and some of that has to do with like word choice or assumptions. They're all just different things that modify style. Okay, so we're not. This is taking a lot longer than I had thought. Okay, devices of substitution. I'm gonna skip through these. Okay, so you get to the end. Devices of visualization. So have those by your side as you do the free writes. Let's go ahead and move to that. The free writes for this section. Sorry, which of course we're going to open this. Here, I'll show you the page there. So we're looking at page 19. Starts the free writes for this unit. And our resources are going to begin, as I'm sure you can figure out, right there on number 20, freewrite 20 / King. So that would, of course, be, in this case, Stephen King. So, okay, so there we go. So the first one here, and you should notice the other thing is the parallels between the last unit and the last free writes in that unit, how they're all the same. They're all focused on, let's assess the perspective of the speaker, the message, what they're saying, the devices, which would be more like how. So you're looking at the rhetorical terms, those are the devices. So those are the how, right? How is the message being communicated? Who is the audience? And all these questions, is it reaching the audience? Is the audience understanding these things? Are there multiple audiences at play? All these things can be addressed there. And effectiveness. So you should see that these are the same things. And like I just made them look slightly different. They're not like bullet pointed, but it's the same stuff, right? We're going to look at this essay for what's the perspective of the speaker? What's the message? What kind of rhetorical devices as you're going over here? Who is the audience and about the effectiveness? The other thing I should mention here, which I don't really have time to do, but I will set it up for you anyway, and you can take a look at it on your own time, is how this corresponds to lecture material in rhetorical analysis. What we would typically do in class is, say for this first one here, this is the one on Stephen King, we would perhaps among other things. It wouldn't be like the only thing that we would do. But like say for example, with this one, I will always, because it's relevant, I will always look at metaphors first. The section on metaphors starts on Rhetorical Analysis Lecture, page 97, right? And then it goes into extended metaphor just after that to kind of tack onto that, and then allusions. So we will look at metaphor and allusions before we would look at this particular free write. So I would do that. I would go ahead and look in that section online and look at the rhetorical analysis lecture. And that's what we would do with each of these. I'm not going to explain that with each part, but before each of these free writes, what we would do in class is we would say, look at, say with the next one, maybe look at ethos, pathos, and logos. That would be a good one to look at before we look at Fisher's work. I don't know, it's probably on this day we get to say repetition. It's an extremely important device, so we tend to look at it early. All right, so looking at this one here, in terms of the free write itself, you have a brief video on King, so you get to know the author a little bit, and then here's the piece itself, which you click on that, it brings you here. I'm going to run out of time. I was going to go and read some of these, but I don't think we're going to have time for that. But here's the beginning of his piece. And I'll just read this sentence here. We've all known people who talk to themselves, people who sometimes squinch their faces into horrible grimaces when they believe no one is watching, people who have some hysterical fear of snakes, the dark, the tight place, the long drop, and of course those final worms and grubs that are waiting so patiently underground. So read that whole piece. It's very short, and then think about what's he saying, how is he saying it, and who's his audience. Look at the title if you want some more indications about the audience. Fisher, the next one, Mary Fisher's Republican National Convention keynote. I'm sure it was a keynote there. Actually, it doesn't say keynote, but I thought it was. I could be wrong. All right, so Fisher will be the next one. You got the speech in a video, the speech on a text, some background information on the speaker. And the task remains the same in all of these. The next speech here, President Obama's Words Matter speech, which you will find, here's the speech, and a transcript, like the words of the speech, a little background on the author, and you have everything you need there. Next one here is Andrew Gibson is a poem, Blue Blanket. The really all we have here is that information. If you want some biographical information on her, it's in the notes on page 22. Page 23, we're looking at this fantastic recent speech by Emma Gonzalez, the We Call BS speech. Some background videos to help get you prepped for it. There's the speech itself, the text of it. And the last one there, as far as rhetorical analysis, is we're going to look at Tara Hoska's TED Talk. So I would take a look at the crash course first. That's going to give you background information on what her speech is about, and then you have her presentation here, and the picture of it, and the description of the assignment here. So that should bring us up to date on our rhetorical analysis free writes. Please do let me know if you have any questions on these.